Introduction. In life, not every relationship serves your growth or well-being, even those with family or close friends. While loyalty and compassion are virtues, Stoic philosophy teaches us that our inner peace and personal integrity should never be compromised. Sometimes, the healthiest choice is to step back from toxic or draining connections, no matter how familiar or comfortable they seem. In this video, we'll uncover 8 clear signs that it may be time to cut ties, empowering you to protect your emotional freedom and live a life guided by reason, self-respect, and resilience. 1. Constant negativity. Constant negativity is a mental and emotional state where an individual habitually focuses on the negative aspects of life, whether in themselves, others, or situations. This persistent mindset not only affects one's mood and outlook, but also profoundly shapes relationships, productivity, and overall well-being. People who operate under constant negativity often view challenges as insurmountable obstacles rather than opportunities for growth, and their tendency to complain or criticize can create a toxic environment around them. This negativity acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy. By expecting the worst, they unconsciously attract or perceive more negative outcomes, which reinforces their pessimistic worldview. Furthermore, constant negativity erodes resilience, making it harder to cope with setbacks or adapt to change. Emotionally, it fuels stress, anxiety, and depression, while mentally, it limits creativity and problem-solving ability because the mind becomes fixated on problems rather than solutions. On a social level, people tend to withdraw from or avoid those who are consistently negative, which can lead to isolation, damage friendships, and strain family relationships. Moreover, negativity is contagious. Spending time with someone who constantly complains or criticizes can influence your own mindset, lowering your energy and optimism. Over time, this persistent negative thinking can become a deeply ingrained habit, shaping identity and behavior in ways that are difficult to reverse. The lesson here is that constant negativity is not just a personal inconvenience, but a profound barrier to growth, happiness, and meaningful connection. To counter it, one must cultivate self-awareness, noticing when thoughts or language slip into patterns of pessimism or blame. Reframing situations, practicing gratitude, and consciously focusing on solutions rather than problems can gradually shift perspective. Mindfulness and emotional regulation techniques also help by providing space to observe negative thoughts without becoming consumed by them. Surrounding oneself with positive influences, people, media, and environments, reinforces constructive thinking patterns and diminishes the pool of negativity. Ultimately, the key takeaway is that while negative experiences and emotions are inevitable, allowing them to dominate perception is optional. Constant negativity is a choice, and like all habits, it can be reshaped through consistent effort, reflection, and disciplined thinking. By recognizing the destructive impact of perpetual pessimism, one gains the power to shift focus toward hope, growth, and meaningful engagement with life. Choosing optimism, even in small measures, strengthens resilience, enhances mental clarity, and improves relationships. The practice of consciously reducing negativity is not about ignoring reality, but about refusing to be enslaved by it. It is about taking responsibility for one's emotional environment and learning to respond to challenges with constructive and balanced mindset. In the end, escaping constant negativity is less about eliminating difficulties and more about transforming perception, creating an inner space where hope, opportunity, and clarity can flourish despite life's inevitable hardships. 2. Lack of respect. Lack of respect is one of the most corrosive forces in human relationships, whether personal, professional, or casual. It often begins subtly with dismissive comments, neglecting boundaries, or minimizing someone's feelings. Yet over time, these small acts accumulate, eroding trust and self-worth. Respect is not merely about politeness or following social conventions. It is a fundamental recognition of another person's value and autonomy. When respect is absent, communication breaks down, conflicts escalate, and relationships become unbalanced, leaving one party feeling unheard, undervalued, or even exploited. One of the most important lessons regarding lack of respect is learning to recognize the early warning signs and address them decisively rather than allowing resentment to fester. Ignoring disrespect, hoping it will fix itself, often only reinforces a behavior, signaling to others that your boundaries and dignity are negotiable. Equally crucial is understanding that respect must be mutual. Demanding it without offering it invites tension and misunderstanding. Healthy relationships thrive on reciprocity, where each person's contributions, opinions, and boundaries are honored. Another key aspect is self-respect. When individuals fail to uphold their own standards, tolerate mistreatment, or justify harmful behavior from others, they inadvertently allow disrespect to persist. Cultivating self-respect strengthens one's ability to enforce boundaries firmly but gracefully, showing others that while kindness and empathy are present, exploitation or devaluation will not be tolerated. Furthermore, lack of respect often stems from deeper insecurities, ignorance, or cultural conditioning, which means responding thoughtfully rather than reactively can prevent escalation. For instance, calmly asserting boundaries, seeking clarification when someone's words or actions feel dismissive, and choosing to disengage from persistent negativity are more effective than retaliatory behavior. In professional environments, lack of respect can manifest as micromanagement, disregard for contributions, or public humiliation, all of which degrade morale and productivity. Recognizing these patterns early allows individuals to advocate for themselves, request accountability, or, if necessary, remove themselves from toxic dynamics. On a personal level, repeated disrespect from friends, family, or partners often signals a misalignment in values or emotional maturity. While loyalty and attachment may make it difficult to confront, protecting one's mental and emotional health should take precedence. Ultimately, the lesson in lack of respect is a call to self-awareness and courage, to notice when respect is absent, to address it with clarity and integrity, and to make deliberate choices about which relationships and environments are worth investing in. Respect is not a luxury. It is a baseline of human dignity, and refusing to accept its absence empowers individuals to cultivate more meaningful, balanced, and fulfilling connections throughout their lives. 3. Manipulation or control. Manipulation and control are subtle forces that often shape human interactions more than we realize. At their core, both stem from a desire to influence others, but the intention and method distinguish them sharply. Manipulation is usually covert, involving psychological tactics that bend someone's thoughts, emotions, or actions without their conscious awareness. It often relies on exploiting vulnerabilities. The other hand, can be overt or subtle and is primarily about asserting authority over circumstances or people, sometimes openly, sometimes indirectly, to maintain predictability or power. The danger lies not only in the behavior itself, but in the effects it has on relationships, trust, and personal integrity. Recognizing manipulation requires mindfulness and emotional intelligence, an awareness of when someone is nudging your decisions for their own gain rather than a mutually beneficial purpose. People who manipulate often frame choices in ways that limit freedom, create dependency, or provoke emotional responses that work to their advantage. Control can sometimes appear in everyday life as insistence on having things done a certain way or attempting to dictate outcomes under the guise of care or guidance. While control may seem less harmful than manipulation, it can stifle growth, breed resentment, and create power imbalances that erode genuine connection. Understanding the distinction is crucial for maintaining healthy boundaries. Emotional detachment and self-awareness serve as essential tools against both manipulation and excessive control. By learning to observe your own reactions, why a comment frustrates or excites you, why you feel compelled to comply, you gain insight into whether your choices are truly your own or influenced by external forces. Equally, recognizing your own tendencies to manipulate or control can prevent unconscious patterns from undermining your relationships. Healthy influence is transparent, respectful, and reciprocal, while manipulation and control are inherently self-serving and covert. Philosophically, many Stoic principles emphasize the importance of distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. Attempting to control others is ultimately futile because their thoughts, feelings, and actions lie outside your true domain. Similarly, allowing yourself to be manipulated surrenders your autonomy, undermining your capacity to respond rationally and act with virtue. Developing clarity about intentions, yours and others, empowers you to navigate social dynamics without losing yourself. Strategies like setting firm boundaries, practicing assertive communication, and fostering self-reliance minimize vulnerability to manipulation. Likewise, resisting the urge to control others cultivates respect and encourages mutual growth. Recognizing the interplay of influence, manipulation, and control is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a path toward emotional independence and ethical integrity. By observing motives and consequences without immediate judgment or reaction, you strengthen your capacity to act intentionally rather than reactively. Over time, this awareness builds resilience against external pressures and nurtures relationships founded on trust and authenticity. Ultimately, mastering the delicate balance between influence and control is a lifelong lesson in self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and moral responsibility, allowing you to engage with the world powerfully yet ethically. 4.no Support or Reciprocity. One of the most important lessons in life is recognizing when relationships lack support or reciprocity, and understanding the impact this imbalance can have on our emotional and mental well-being. Human connections are built on mutual respect, trust, and effort, yet many people invest their time, energy, and care into relationships that offer little in return. When there is no support or reciprocity, the dynamic becomes one-sided, leaving one person constantly giving while the other merely takes. This imbalance can lead to feelings of exhaustion, resentment, and diminished self-worth over time. It is crucial to understand that relationships, whether with friends, family, or romantic partners, should not function as a drain on one's energy. If you find yourself repeatedly offering help, encouragement, or emotional labor without receiving even basic acknowledgement or support, it is a clear signal that the relationship is unhealthy. Recognizing this truth requires honesty with oneself, as it can be uncomfortable to admit that someone we care about is not capable of meeting us halfway. Many people struggle with this because they confuse love, loyalty, or duty with self-sacrifice. However, Stoic philosophy teaches that we are responsible for our own well-being first. Allowing oneself to be drained by those who offer nothing in return is neither virtuous nor sustainable. Understanding the absence of reciprocity also helps set healthy boundaries. It is not selfish to prioritize your needs or step back from relationships that consistently fail to support you. In fact, doing so strengthens emotional resilience and fosters self-respect. The absence of support is not always malicious. Sometimes people are simply incapable or unaware, but the lesson remains the same. One must not allow the inability of others to compromise one's own stability and growth. By observing who invests in our lives and who takes without giving, we learn to differentiate between meaningful connections and toxic ones. Over time, practicing discernment allows us to surround ourselves with people who respect our time, energy, and presence. Moreover, understanding the lack of reciprocity encourages us to examine our own patterns of giving. Are we offering support indiscriminately, hoping to receive validation or affection in return? True generosity does not demand reciprocation, but wisdom dictates that it should not come at the cost of our well-being. Recognizing relationships that lack support or reciprocity is ultimately an act of self-preservation, a commitment to emotional independence, and a step toward healthier interactions. It teaches patience, discernment, and the courage to step away from those who deplete us, making space for relationships that are balanced, nurturing, and mutually fulfilling. 5. Frequent drama or conflict. Recurrent drama or conflict in your life is often a signal that something deeper is out of balance, both internally and externally. People who are constantly surrounded by arguments, misunderstandings, or emotional upheaval are not merely unlucky. They are often engaged with environments or individuals that challenge their peace unnecessarily. From a Stoic perspective, this is an opportunity to recognize that your tranquility is a choice and that no one can disturb your inner calm without your consent. Frequent drama often stems from attachment to outcomes, the need for validation, or unresolved personal insecurities. When we find ourselves reacting emotionally to every disagreement or provocation, we are surrendering control of our mental state to external circumstances. Conflict in moderation is natural. It can spark growth, clarify boundaries, and test values, but when it becomes a pattern, it consumes energy, diminishes clarity, and prevents deliberate action. Those who thrive amid chaos are often skilled at maintaining detachment. They observe situations without internalizing every insult, disagreement, or provocation, understanding that the behavior of others is a reflection of their own mindset and choices, not a judgment on your worth. Living amid frequent drama also teaches the importance of boundaries. Constant conflict rarely resolves itself. It tends to repeat until firm limits are established. By identifying toxic patterns, whether in personal relationships, workplace interactions, or social networks, you create space for intentional engagement rather than reactive chaos. This does not require confrontation or hostility. It requires clarity and self-respect. A simple principle, I control my response, not the actions of others, can transform a life overshadowed by conflict into one of quiet confidence. Over time, practicing patience, emotional regulation, and strategic disengagement reduces unnecessary friction. Frequent drama often masks unspoken fears, insecurity, or envy, and recognizing this allows you to approach situations with compassion rather than retaliation. Moreover, habitual exposure to conflict dulls emotional resilience. When every interaction is a potential battle, mental fatigue accumulates, decision-making becomes clouded, and stress becomes chronic. Choosing calm over chaos is not avoidance, it is mastery. By selectively engaging only in meaningful disputes and letting trivial conflicts pass, you can conserve energy for situations that matter. Stoic wisdom emphasizes that life is too short to be perpetually embroiled in the petty quarrels of others. Instead, cultivate the ability to step back, observe objectively, and act with purpose. Even when surrounded by drama, your inner world can remain untouched, calm, deliberate, and unshakable. In essence, frequent conflict is both a challenge and a mirror. It forces you to confront your triggers, clarify your boundaries, and strengthen your emotional independence. Those who recognize the lesson behind recurring drama do not merely survive. They emerge stronger, wiser, and capable of choosing serenity over chaos, proving that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself. 6. Undermining your growth. Undermining your growth often begins in subtle ways, hidden within your daily thoughts, habits, and relationships, and it can quietly derail your progress before you even realize it. One of the primary ways people sabotage their own growth is through self-doubt and negative self-talk, which plant seeds of limitation in the mind. When you constantly question your abilities, minimize your achievements, or fear failure excessively, you create mental barriers that prevent you from taking the bold steps necessary for progress. Another major factor is complacency, settling into comfort zones where growth feels unnecessary or even threatening. While comfort provides temporary relief and safety, it deprives you of the experiences that challenge you, teach resilience, and expand your capabilities. Procrastination is another silent enemy of personal development. Delaying action on important goals not only slows progress but reinforces patterns of avoidance, making it easier to justify staying stagnant. In the same vein, surrounding yourself with people who discourage ambition or instill doubt can significantly undermine your growth. Toxic influences, whether through jealousy, criticism, or subtle manipulation, can erode your confidence and make you question your path, turning once promising potential into wasted energy. Overcommitting to distractions, whether digital consumption, social obligations, or low-value pursuits, also divert your attention from meaningful development. Growth demands focus, deliberate effort, and time, and scattering your energy makes it nearly impossible to achieve. Additionally, a fear of failure or fear of judgment often prevents individuals from pursuing opportunities that could accelerate learning and transformation. By avoiding challenges, you inadvertently reinforce mediocrity and deny yourself the lessons that come from pushing limits. A lack of self-awareness further exacerbates these patterns. Failing to reflect on your habits, emotions, and decisions allows destructive behaviors to continue unchecked. People often undermine their growth without even recognizing it because they prioritize short-term comfort over long-term progress, ignore constructive feedback, or cling to outdated beliefs that no longer serve them. Moreover, comparing yourself excessively to others can create envy, resentment, or unnecessary pressure, all of which distract from authentic self-improvement. True growth requires discipline, patience, and resilience, the ability to confront weaknesses, embrace discomfort, and consistently take actions aligned with your goals. When you fail to cultivate these qualities, you inadvertently place obstacles in your own path. Breaking the cycle of self-sabotage involves conscious awareness, identifying habits, thoughts, and relationships that hinder progress and taking deliberate steps to address them. It also requires nurturing your mind and body, cultivating discipline, and committing to lifelong learning. By recognizing the ways in which you may be undermining your own growth, you empower yourself to eliminate limiting behaviors, adopt constructive routines, and surround yourself with influences that propel you forward. Ultimately, growth is not a passive process. It is an active, intentional pursuit, and the first step toward true transformation is acknowledging where you are standing in your own way and taking responsibility for stepping beyond it. 7. Dishonesty and betrayal. Dishonesty and betrayal are among the most damaging behaviors that can corrode trust, relationships, and personal integrity. When someone lies or acts deceitfully, it not only undermines the immediate bond between people, but also plants seeds of doubt and insecurity that can take years to remove. Dishonesty often begins subtly, sometimes under the guise of protecting feelings or avoiding conflict, but even small lies create cracks in the foundation of trust. Betrayal, on the other hand, is a deliberate violation of loyalty, whether through infidelity, deceit in business, or the sharing of confidential information. Both dishonesty and betrayal stem from prioritizing short-term gain or personal convenience over the long-term value of integrity and ethical behavior. They erode the emotional safety that allows individuals to feel secure in their connections, and once trust is broken, it is incredibly difficult to rebuild. The psychological impact of betrayal can be profound. Feelings of hurt, anger, and disillusionment often accompany the realization that someone you relied upon has acted in a way that disregards your trust and respect. Furthermore, habitual dishonesty and betrayal can become patterns, shaping one's character and influencing how others perceive and interact with them. From a broader perspective, these behaviors have societal consequences as well. In professional, familial, and social contexts, dishonesty and betrayal can disrupt cohesion, hinder collaboration, and foster an environment of suspicion and defensiveness. This is why cultivating honesty and loyalty is not merely a moral choice, but also a practical one, essential for maintaining stable, meaningful relationships. Dealing with dishonesty and betrayal requires a dual approach, protecting oneself and learning from the experience. Protecting oneself may mean setting boundaries, distancing from toxic influences, or developing the discernment to identify red flags early. Learning. From betrayal involve reflection on the circumstances, recognizing patterns in others and in oneself, and using these lessons to cultivate stronger, healthier relationships in the future. Stoic philosophy teaches that while one cannot always control the actions of others, one can control one's response. Choosing to act with integrity, even when others do not, preserves self-respect and ensures that one is not complicit in perpetuating deceit. Additionally, it is important to forgive, not necessarily for the other person's sake, but to release oneself from the burden of resentment, which can be corrosive to mental and emotional well-being. Ultimately, the lessons of dishonesty and betrayal center on the value of authenticity, accountability, and ethical conduct. They remind us that trust is fragile, loyalty is precious, and the choices we make in our interactions define the quality of our character. By confronting and understanding the consequences of deceit and treachery, individuals can cultivate resilience, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to living in a way that honors both themselves and those they care about. 8. Emotional harm. Emotional harm is often invisible, yet its effects can be as profound and lasting as physical injury, shaping the way we think, feel, and interact with the world around us. Unlike a visible wound, emotional harm can quietly erode self-esteem, distort perceptions, and leave deep psychological scars that linger long after the triggering events have passed. It often begins subtly through repeated criticism, manipulation, neglect, or betrayal, and over time, it can accumulate into a pattern of internalized pain that influences every aspect of life. People who experience emotional harm may develop self-doubt, anxiety, or depression, constantly questioning their worth and the intentions of others. They may struggle to form trusting relationships, fearing that openness will inevitably lead to disappointment or rejection. In many cases, emotional harm stems from relationships that are supposed to be safe, such as those with family, friends, or partners, which makes it particularly insidious because it undermines the very foundation of human connection. Understanding emotional harm requires acknowledging that words, attitudes, and subtle behaviors can inflict damage just as deeply as physical acts, and often, the person causing harm may not even recognize the extent of their impact. Recovery begins with awareness. The recognition of the feelings of hurt, anger, or sadness are valid and deserve attention rather than suppression. Setting boundaries becomes essential, as it allows individuals to protect themselves from further harm while reclaiming a sense of agency and control over their lives. Emotional resilience is built gradually, through self-reflection, cultivating supportive relationships, and learning to respond rather than react to toxic influences. This process may also involve confronting past trauma, forgiving oneself for perceived weaknesses, and reshaping one's internal dialogue to counter negative self-beliefs instilled by harmful experiences. Importantly, emotional harm is not a sign of weakness, nor does it define a person's value. Rather, it is a challenge to be acknowledged, addressed, and transcended. By recognizing patterns of emotional harm, individuals can break cycles of toxicity in both their personal and professional lives, learning to differentiate between constructive criticism and destructive behavior, and choosing interactions that nurture growth rather than diminish it. Over time, healing from emotional harm enables greater emotional intelligence, empathy, and strength, fostering healthier relationships and a more stable, grounded sense of self. In essence, while emotional harm can shape a person's journey, it does not have to determine the destination. And with conscious effort, reflection, and support, one can transform pain into insight, vulnerability into resilience, and suffering into the foundation for deeper emotional freedom and authentic connection.